James Eshleman is a guide at the center of all directions. He's helping people through transformational peak experiences and catalyzing growth, building meaning, and helping people to lead more fulfilling lives. Welcome to the show, James.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Tell us a little about your personal life, some more about your work, and why you do what you do.
Hmm. Yeah, I think, you know, the work that I do in the world really stems from a lot of the disposition that I was really came into this life with. Um, I'm very curious by nature, very inquisitive. I've always had a depth of understanding of my inner world and sort of the wellspring of life that bubbles up in me. And when I guess around 2017, um, I found psychedelics for myself and my own healing, and it showed me a lot of doors that I could walk through. And as I walked through each door, I found more and more meaning and significance in who I am and what I'm here to do in the world. And I just fell in love with that, um, both for myself and then too, it eventually evolved into being a steward for other people, guiding people through doors of their own. And it's the thing that gives me, in a lot of ways, the most meaning. Um, Helping people, guiding people, stewarding people through transitions, big and small transitions. Could be a transition of being, a transition of personality, a transition of job and career, relationship. Um, and I see this work, with psychedelics largely that it's transitional work, and 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 it's just a lot of fun, and I think it ultimately is, you know, taking it to really the depths of the experiences is that it's all sort of working towards, the ultimate transition of death, which I think is not something necessarily to be afraid of, but to really learn that it's actually a tool that we can embrace, that helps us move through life more fluidly.
Well, I appreciate that. So in 2017, what were you looking for? How did you come to psychedelics?
Uh, I was at the time very depressed. I was working in finance, um, and it's a world that sort of lacked substance for me. Um, uh, I was disconnected from myself, disconnected from what my purpose in the world was. Felt like I was waking up every day, doing the same thing over and over again, and sort of in the hamster wheel of life, right? And um, and I knew that there was something more, like there was a deep knowing that I had something more to bring to the world, and 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 I was standing up or sitting at my desk one day, and I guess just in a moment of clarity, I had no intent to do this that morning, but I just stood up, walked into my manager's office, and quit. And I was thinking I'd get a 2 weeks notice, and my manager said, "Okay, pack your things. Security's going to escort you out the door." And that was sort of, the tip of the hat, the acknowledgement that I wasn't meant to be there in a lot of ways, and that was a shedding of an identity that I really needed to let go of. That my world was finance, and that's where I belonged. And so as I let go of that identity, it made room for really a new identity to begin to form, which was, um, you know, not something that I knew at the time. I didn't know what that identity was, um, but I knew I needed to follow the curiosity and follow the unknown, and travel, into um, a new and undefined space within myself. And psychedelics really helped me do that.
And psychedelics, what is the medium, for lack of a better term? How did you engage in it?
Uh, well, classic psychedelic that I think we're all really familiar with, particularly in Denver, is psilocybin mushrooms. Um, that was a medicine that was eventually led to, but I started with ayahuasca, and it was a ceremonial use. It was very intentional ceremonial use. Um, and within ceremonial use and intentional use of psychedelics, there's a way in which these experiences can shed light on the deeper self, right? We have sort of our surface self, our self that engages with the world, and then the deeper self, which is sort of the essential pieces of us. And uh, psychedelics and ayahuasca in particular really is a great medicine for bringing us in contact with the deeper self. And I think the ultimate goal in with these substances, and then too with life, is to bring the deeper self and the self that engages with the world into closer and closer alignment. Um, and these substances are really good at doing that.
So the initial experience was valuable enough to you, profound enough to you to say, okay, I need to pursue this further.
Yeah, yeah. The first ceremony, it wasn't really. I went into. I think a lot of people go into their first, psychedelic experience thinking that it's going to, solve all their problems and change everything for them. And 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 that was my disposition too. And I went into it, and I had a beautiful experience that showed me some things. And but in isolation, it didn't solve all my problems, but it did start to change my life. And so I sat in sequential ceremonies. Well, really, that month was I sat in two more ayahuasca ceremonies that month, and then I started sitting regularly. And it was the regular engagement with this medicine that I really just had a hunger for the work that the ayahuasca provided, and so I kept coming back, and it was over the course of time that I really started to chisel away at a lot of the conditioning that showed me the depth and beauty of life.
So is it possible to articulate this experience? Is it all the senses? Is it your thinking, your visuals?
It's so extra sensory, in so many ways. I mean, it does engage the feeling body and the thinking body and the emotional body, and there's a big visual component, uh, and so it sort of has this way of expanding out the perspective in all ways, right? In all sensory ways, that that allows people to begin to see outside of themselves, right? It allowed me to see outside of myself, where so much of my focus was on me, the ego, me, the identity, me, who I was and what I was doing in the world, and started to shift the alignment towards the deeper self through the sensory experience.
Do you think that you mentioned that the ayahuasca ceremony was intentional? Do you think that you have to go into this with that sense of intention, or does simply consuming the psilocybin mushrooms, the ayahuasca, is that going to give me the experience?
I I see the intention. So the intention setting process, I think, is actually really important. You don't always get what your intention is right out of the ceremony, but it's the practice of, you know, contemplating yourself and contemplating your life and contemplating your intention deeply, that brings you into contact with something that's really pure, right? It's usually, when you really dial into it, it's that I think the common thread is often that people are seeking a deeper level of connection with something. And when you allow yourself to set the intention that you want a deeper connection with something, and go through the practice too of defining what that means for you, it can bring you into a place of reverence and appreciation for, one, all that you have, and two, all that you can invite into your life. And I think those are really important considerations, because they really help to set sort of the guardrail of the experience, you know, to say that this is not just something that I'm doing recreationally or doing, just for fun. Because, I mean, they can be really fun experiences. They can also be really difficult experiences. And if you've gone through the process of defining, a little bit more, in a little bit more depth about what you truly want out of life, it gives you the fodder for the fire to continue to move forward in the experience, especially if it gets difficult.
So when you say it gets difficult, tell me more about that.
Yeah. Well, we've got, I think it's difficult to face emotions. It's difficult to face conditioned patternings. It's difficult to face our fears, right? Uh, and these medicines really invite us to confront the things that we have never confronted in our life. But it's also really beautiful, right? And inspiring, and helps us develop courage and trust in who we are. So, much like life itself has a lot of difficulties to it, whether it's, the psycho-emotional stress that we experience throughout life, right? Or, the, the, it can be difficult too, to be living from a place of fear and misalignment as well, sort of subtle difficulty. And so, yeah, these medicines help us confront what is sort of holding us back in life, and it's not always fun, but it's certainly worth it.
I've been thinking a lot lately about how our ability to rationalize is potentially a superpower, but more of a weapon of mass destruction in our lives, because I can justify just about anything and I can BS myself into just about anything. Fair to say that an experience like this sort of strips that away and shows you what's really going on.
Yeah, certainly. It, the mental structures that we put into place to help justify, our ways of being in the world, really become, they they are experienced as fragile in a psychedelic space. And I think that's an important piece of it, right? Because what we're ultimately trying to lead to is a part of us that's durable, that's sort of everlasting, which is the deeper parts of ourselves, the light, right? Or some might say the soul, the spirit. It's the essential piece of us. And so those structures can really, break apart, and then they're not really something that we can ground to in those experiences, because they're often intense enough to shatter the foundation of anything that isn't real and authentic in us. And it's through the destruction of, I say destruction, these are intense terms, but through the dissolution, I should say, of those structures, the we orient more towards um, the clarity, more towards the honesty, more towards the truth, and and then that becomes something that we can really build a real honest foundation upon, you know, and that helps us move through life more easily, more fluidly.
I certainly I certainly agree that the more truth that we can be living in, that's going to make life better and easier. What and maybe this is unanswerable or unknowable. What am I really accessing? Am I just accessing different parts of myself? Am I connecting with a universal energy of some kind?
Yeah, all the above. And some might say God, right? Source, divine, um, whatever, you know, that word is for you. Um, it brings us into connection with that, something outside of ourselves. Let's say that, right? Sort of shatters the silos that we keep around ourselves, keep ourselves safe, but also keep ourselves separate. And and so um, so when those silos disintegrate, um, it's a lot easier to see that we're a part of a larger whole, right? And it's a beautiful thing because it allows us to embrace our own insignificance. That our lives, you know, have an insignificance to them. In that there's so much going on here. I mean, just in the scope of what life provides, life has been happening here for billions of years, and we're here for just 100 if we're lucky. And in that, there's a real authentic significance that we're just here to play and to experience love and connection. It sort of allows you to reprioritize the things that truly matter. And I think that's a really beautiful invitation of this medicine, is to drop the things that we think are important and begin to open up to the things that truly matter.
Yeah, that is a compelling promise right there. I think that that's awesome. All right, so somebody says I'm very interested in exploring this further. What is that? Walk me through the process.
Yeah, so somebody comes to me, people come to me often, and I'll lead them through sort of a consultation of sorts, which is a screening process, to determine if it's, a good fit. And, that could mean a number of things. It could be psycho-emotional disposition. Are you in crisis, or is there, some basis of groundedness in your life? And then evaluating and understanding the contours and aspects of somebody's intention. What's really calling somebody to this space? What's calling somebody to work with these medicines? And then it's a dialogue and a conversation about life and about what people want out of life. And then from there, it's once we've kind of developed that sense of readiness, then we just jump right into the process. And I lead people through preparation. So I'll take them through it's akin to therapy in some ways, but I'm not a therapist. It's more of like a coaching and guiding container, where I'll help them really define the nuance of their intention to get a better understanding of what's driving them, both to live the way that they're living now and what's driving them to want to live in a new, more refined, more open and available way. And then that leads into the facilitated experience. And and then through the facilitated experience, afterward, you get a lot of insights from these journeys, and oftentimes they're so big and so expansive that it's difficult for us to comprehend them on our own. So the beauty of having a guide is that a guide can help to call out the parts of the experience that we might be taking for granted, that we might miss as meaningful because we view them from our own sort of programming and conditioning. And then that's where the integration comes in, is helping to make meaning of the experience. What just happened? how does this impact me? How do I make changes in my life? What do those changes even need to be, right? And so the integration, and in my mind, the preparation and integration is oftentimes more important than the facilitated experience itself, because there's so much that can be distilled through a intentional and conscious practice of being in relationship with the thing that we are seeking, and how we can apply the thing that we are seeking into our life.
Well, James, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people learn more about you and how can they go on this journey with you?
You can find me at the centerofalldirections.com. Uh, I do psychedelic guiding, transformational coach. I lead people through rich transitions in their life. I also do men's work and have a number of offerings available. I am also on Instagram at James Eshleman. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, if you enjoyed this as much as I did, show James your appreciation and share today's show with a friend who also appreciates good ideas. James, is it the Center of All Directions or centerofalldirections.com?
Centerofalldirections.com.
Perfect. Go there, check it out, find him on Instagram. I'll link all those in the notes of the show. Thanks again, James.
Thank you.
Until next time, remember, do your part by doing your best.